Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here to discuss the film Under the Silver Lake. Yeah. So I'm here with Chris Mohan. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Yes, I might just listen and hear what you think about this, Steve, because you've been on what seems to me like a very good run with this little project of the A24 films in the last days. And this is a stone cold splits everybody down the middle. In fact, I would say it's more weighted to the WTF is a film that long doing, and other people that think it has artistic merit.
I think it's all the above.
This is where I am as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see, okay, so I can see where it has some, and we're going to get into spoilers, but I can see where it has some artistic merit, right? With the craft and building the story. I think the problem that I had wasn't that it was too long, is that it tried to do too much.
Right. Okay. Which made it probably too long, by virtue of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots to take apart in this one. But just generally, I would say so I have theories about what's really going on,
Okay.
about
Yeah.
really happened. But just surface level stuff, I thought it was an interesting film. There's little bits and pieces along the way that it's one that you can watch over and over and still pick up things. I thought there's some really interesting themes with like pop culture and current generations and porn and what else? Entertainment, how it forms our lives, how like drug use and music and there's a ton of stuff. So, but I thought there was lots of interesting things that they're playing with, and I'm not sure they hit a home run on all of them, but I think it
Yeah.
was a interesting delivery system for it. But um, I like it more now that I've had time to kind of reflect on it.
Yeah.
Where do
It's
you
it's a
where are you?
film. It's a film that I watched and kind of went, "Oh, I really like that bit." I love actually the nods to stuff right the way through it. I like actually how they use a extremely likable character actor in Andrew Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield is universally liked, and put him in a role that challenge you, the viewer, to kind of go, I know you like Andrew Garfield, but he's not exactly the best human being in this, and he's not exactly somebody that you can go along and support. He's not a prototypical protagonist here where you're kind of going, oh, I hope he gets the girl. In some ways, I'm hoping he doesn't get the girl. I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah. Speaking of getting the girl, throughout the whole film, I was thinking he knew this girl for like a night, and he's on this.
Seconds, yeah.
Yeah, he's on this like quest to either figure out what happened or save her. And the whole time I'm thinking, you don't even know her, and you're going through. So I did get a good chuckle at the end when she tells him, "But you barely know me."
Yeah, exactly right. But I think that's kind of like a microcosm of what the film's about for me, anyway. I mean, the film's about loads of stuff, as you say, Steve. Like the pigeonhole it in one thing, but I think for me the core tacit is that we have a young man here who is completely lost in life, and he wants to latch on to something, and in fact, he latches on to everything that comes across him. Everybody that has an idea, he's like, "Oh yes, you're right. This is such a thing." So even this girl, like again, you look at the relationships that he has with women in his life before this girl, before and after this girl. He has a relationship through his binoculars
Mm-hmm.
with somebody that lives across away from him. In his head, he has a relationship with that person. He's being an absolute creep about it, and he's just kind of being suave about it. And then even the girl that he's sort of in a relationship with, I mean, she turns up in his house in lederhosen, in a very sexually provocative kind of way for his benefit, obviously. So he's not exactly a well-adjusted person in society, and
Mm-hmm.
he has this girl invites him in. So I can actually see in some ways how he would go, "Oh, this is somebody that's actually interested in me and on some, base level of conversation. So therefore, I love her."
He did have the other girl that he was seeing, and I wondered because it always looked like she was dressed up as a nurse or dressed up in like a costume.
An outfit, yet
Did she exist, or was that his imagination?
That's a good point. To me, she existed in the sense that she was interested in him and would do whatever it was that she thought would kind of get his attention, hence the outfits.
Mm,
Um, but he never really seemed interested in her, other than in a kind of like uh,
like a
casual
hookup.
kind of
Yeah.
like a hookup, exactly right, you know. But she was searching for more out of him in what they were doing. But I think if I have problems with this film, actually the representation of females in general
Mm.
is very stark. Every female in the film is sexualized. Like you're,
I wondered if that was his perception, or
mm,
is that the way he sees women?
I think that's such a deliberate choice. Like
Mhm.
because even by the girls that he meets in the parties are all very scantily dressed. They're all hookers. They all fit that archetype. And like I think a lot of the world we just see this warped view of his life, you know, and the things that happens and the things that he does. And like you said, you're left with this thing of did any of this happen?
I wonder if he sees women like that because that's how women are portrayed in pop culture a lot.
Hmm.
So maybe because there is a reference when he's talking to his friend and they're playing video games, and he tells him our generation is looking for is they're obsessed with video games and puzzles, and there's nothing left to discover. So we look for things to discover.
Yeah.
So they go down these conspiracy theory rabbit holes, and because they're wanting something, they want to discover something. So they find this map on a cereal box that's gonna change their
Oh,
life, or
this
it's
totally
meant to
lines
be.
up. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
It's like the people that really take apart TV series or video games and say they're looking for Easter eggs and God, did this mean something? Or you know, the complete fanboyism that kind of goes over the top
Mhm.
with an awful lot of like singular um pieces of content or other. You know, a movie. People, I've watched this 10,000 times, and actually, see if you freeze the thing at this time, you know that you can see reflection in the water, and I think that's his mum. You know that kind of stuff, and like that happens a lot. I mean, would YouTube exist without it?
Hmm.
There's a lot of that stuff on YouTube that is very watchable, I have to say.
Yeah.
And kind of makes you think. Like I used to do an English lesson where when I was teaching English, I never really liked teaching English, but I was teaching a group of kids that basically knew nothing about anything history wise. So I would just kind of teach them something, and then the guys do English within it. But one of the things they used to do was that the moon landings were fake, right?
Hmm.
And present that case to them. And every single one of those kids was just 100% convinced. And I was like, no, that's not the point of this. I'm not saying the moon landings were fake. I'm saying that there is an argument in a way that you can use evidence
Hmm.
unreliably or otherwise to kind of present an argument. And they're like, oh, but look, that guy says, and he is right. Like it looks like a TV studio, or like okay.
Do you think there's something to that there is that we crave things to discover, that we look for things when there is none?
Well, I think we do talks about movies, we do talks about books. We
Yeah.
are looking to see whether we see something in those things when we're discussing this. That's one of the reasons that
Mm.
you do it. And I think that's where a lot of fun comes because sometimes we can think, oh God, I did see something. I think this is true. And everybody else can go, that's mad. Sometimes you can say something like in the last one, and I go, I completely missed that. Like that seems so
Yeah.
obvious in retrospect, but that over my head, I did not see that. And so I think everything that we consume that we want to discuss, I think that's one of the beauties of discussing things is you can kind of go, oh, this is what I think. And that's why, come to the talks like this, you kind of go, I try not to read any other reviews. I'll try not to read anybody else's kind of opinion of this because I'll just be passing on theirs. And that's not what I want out of this
Hmm.
period. But yeah, I think essentially that's a lot of what this movie is showing and projecting. It just did it have to go? Was it 130 minutes or something like that?
It was like, yeah, it was a good.
139.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he could have made that point in 25 minutes shorter, something like that, something around that, and not had it drawn out because I think at a certain point, and maybe this was the idea, it got ridiculous.
Yeah. There were some portions. I'm not convinced any of it really happened.
Mhm.
So yeah, I wonder if there were some things that not sure if that. Yeah. So like the music producer, the songwriter,
Yes.
did that happen?
I mean, almost certainly not, because
Yeah.
how it ends and all that kind of stuff. It's like, right, no. I mean, that ultimately feels like a fantasist reality at the end. The conversation happening would be one thing, but like I just don't see it. The point that really got me was like the homeless king. By the time he meets this random homeless guy, and it turns out that he's some sort of like part of some super group and all this kind of stuff. It's like you're just running the people in the middle of the woods here and projecting an identity, projecting a conspiracy, etc., on the rest of them, and that everything kind of links together, all because this girl disappeared on him,
Okay.
if she
So
existed.
yeah. So okay. So the one of the biggest storylines here was the dog killer. That's kind of where
Mm,
it starts. Was the dog killer.
yes, yeah, that's right.
So my theory, and tell me if you agree here. My theory is that he was the dog killer.
Oh,
He was the dog killer because he was obsessed with his ex-girlfriend, who was the woman on the billboard who they ran into at the party. She
right, yeah.
introduced him to her new fiance. And she said, "It's good to see you," kind of like, a little awkward. And when the homeless king finds him, he says, "Why are you carrying around dog biscuits?" He says, "I'm carrying them around because I'm trying to win my ex-girlfriend back and have a biscuit for the dogs." So my theory was that he's killing dogs as a way of getting revenge, I guess, or coping somehow
Mm,
to try and win, or like out of anger, or um to like get back at her, or to
that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. I would have thought, because he isn't a likable character, but he's also is sort of harmless. He's sort of gormless would be actually the word that I would use to describe him, insofar as he's seen a dog getting killed or otherwise, and he kind of thought I could be that person, and then again projects himself into that spot. But again,
Hmm.
all things are possible here because he's a complete fantasist. The idea that he could be killing the dogs is a sort of fantasy that could play it as real. Like it, I'd imagine if you interview, any serial killer, in some way they would manifest a lot of this stuff in their stories.
Yeah.
The back to the cereal box, it's like Son of Sam, all that kind of stuff was all very, people whispering to him,
Hmm.
people in his ear. It wasn't really him, but he was being told to do it, all of that kind of stuff. So it does fit that kind of psyche.
So let me get your thoughts on this too. So was he always homeless? Because everyone keeps saying that he stinks.
Mm.
So, but they kind of hide that with the skunk because he gets sprayed by the skunk, and then he bathes in tomato paste or tomatoes to try and get the smell away. But from that point on, which is days later, people still telling him he stinks.
Thanks. Yeah.
Was he homeless the whole time?
Again, the nice apartment being the fantasy, and the fact that he's kicked out of it. God, 139 minutes. If he had no house to even start with, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a film that and again, I think this is one of the things. I think he deliberately has produced and written a film that basically says, I've written you and made a movie that is based on somebody that lots of ideas come from different scenes, and he's basically said, let's see how many we can come up with for people trying to explain what this
Hmm.
is or otherwise, and they all work. And I think that's kind of maybe part of the beauty of this is that, and
Yeah.
I think it's probably it changed the day that the idea that you can watch this, kind of come away from it a bit puzzled, but then start to project on it and then think, oh, maybe I do like this movie a bit more. And to be perfectly clear, it's the reason I ended up buying it as well. I watched it and then bought it because it was
Really?
like this needs revisited. I have a good friend, Elliot Cohen, your channel, if you don't subscribe
Hmm.
to it, but he absolutely loves this film. He
Hmm.
thinks this is destined to be one of these films in 10 years that people look back and go, oh, we missed on this at the time. Now this did a lot, or this spoke an awful lot, this said an awful lot, and I don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I'm quite there, because I think there are problems with it in terms of like all the things that I've said, portrayal of females. Do you ever be considered like great in that sense? It's too it's just too many of my buttons, I think, for that to be true.
No.
I sort of like a likable character in a film at some stage.
I don't know if there's very many of those.
There's not really. Even the girl who's sort of hapless and gormless as well is who is kind of girlfriend who could be a fantasy. You're quite right, absolutely. Given the various states of undress that she arrives in his house, like she would
Yeah.
have had to walk there or something. Anyway. But there's no likable character here, and again, that's the issues that I have with it. Nearly everything that I loved immediately after or while I was watching it, during the watching experience, were all like nods to like noir films, soundtracking,
Yes.
especially all of that kind of stuff. I thought, oh, this is kind of brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even portraying the type of character that he thought he was, that kind of the investigator in a noir film, all of that kind of stuff. I thought that was great.
Very noir. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I thought the use of soundtrack, and especially they obviously did the things with the billboards, all that kind of stuff, very classic noir film stuff. But the subtle changes in the beats and the soundtrack, where you just kind of go, oh, the muted trumpets and all of that kind of stuff. Wow, I just thought this is so clever, especially using the location that it's in, a very classic noir location as well.
Yeah.
And chasing after the female, like there's very much a neo noir of sorts. It uses that as its basis to kind of then wrap all of this other nonsense in.
So one of the reasons I think that he may have been homeless, or this may have been his imagination, one of the things was that at the beginning, those kids deface his car.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, his car's fine. So he didn't have money for rent, right? He didn't have money to pay rent. So you would think he didn't have money to fix without it been a big repair, because they go all the way around in the hood and everything. But the next day, his car is not defaced anymore. So if that was his imagination or a dream or whatever, what do those kids represent?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking then. Either he never had the car, or if he had the car, it's imagery or a point. I don't know. You can't keep anything good for yourself. Like anything you own can be destroyed, or something of that ilk.
Because he doesn't have a job.
Yeah. Oh no. Doesn't dress very well. He doesn't dress like somebody who has money for sure. He doesn't keep himself well. He's none of the hallmarks of anybody that, because he does live in a nice apartment, like for sure. But he doesn't have any of the trappings that go with that. Even though that set of binoculars got to be expensive.
Yeah. It's a pretty nice pair of binoculars to look 20 feet or whatever, 30 feet.
Exactly right. Oh dear. Yeah. And the fact that he would gain entry to the kind of high class parties that he ends up going to and meeting the people that he does, how does he get in?
I wonder that too, but I think it's all very casual and come as you are kind of thing. So that's why I thought maybe.
I mean, I can't get into certain nightclubs.
Yeah.
And trainers.
He does get some looks, but not enough. You would think he'd get more.
He sticks out a lot, especially with the women that he's talking to. Like, they're very much supposed to be the hostesses of the party in a lot of ways. They're making their way around people, and whether they're working at the party or they're guests of the party, they are very much center of attention because they're dressed and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know.
It is a confusing film. I actually was very interested to see what you thought of this, because it's a weird film. I don't think there's any other way. It's a strange film that does take some turn apart.
There's lots of things. One of the scenes that kind of got to me was when they're they're flying the drone and looking in people's windows,
Mm,
and that woman is there and she's crying. Kind of like the perception of beauty, and like they have a perfect life, but she's falling apart in her living room.
yeah,
You know, it's
exactly right.
so. And I think they kind of fled the drone back at that point because it just a little creepy, but well, very creepy, of course. But
It's
um,
in keeping.
yeah, so there's lots of little things like that sprinkled in,
Yeah.
like Nintendo Power One. Like, who would ever
Yeah.
guess NP1 was part of the code?
But even some of the casting, like the guy who talks about the Nintendo Power and then the cereal box, etc., is a very well known kind
Mhm.
of like weird actor. He often, very Lynchian in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In that way, very, very David Lynch kind of esque kind of plotting insofar as, right, we've taken you to this point and now we're going to take you here. These two things aren't really related. We're going to take you to another location. Not really related, but kind of get you to piece it together. I do feel like it was very much a Lynchian attempt to kind of create a Mulholland Drive-ish
Mm.
film.
Now that you mention it, it is very Mulholland Drive-esque.
It is. It is.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm
But
not sure that there are like concrete answers for everything.
yeah, well, Mulholland Drive doesn't. I mean,
Mm.
Lynch has been very honest about the fact that he doesn't really know what it's about, and he, he kind of makes these pastiches and things like that. I would always say Lynch in films, especially Mulholland Drive, each scene in itself by itself makes sense. Put together, no, not really. Even the characterization and stuff, I would say, is not continuous. A bit like these characters and stuff like that. But he does create really interesting. Like I think Mulholland Drive's an amazing movie.
Mhm.
You know, but I can say after watching it the first time I went, like, I don't even know what to think of it.
Yeah, it is confusing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what else was there? So the women, the women, when they're upset with him, they bark like dogs, right?
Mm.
So I kind of attributed that to him feeling rejected by his ex and somehow linking that to dogs and somehow taking it out on the dogs. That was the reason that he was the dog killer.
Oh. I just took that as a sort of like a literal dog reference to the bitch or the like that's how he perceives women talking to him at a certain point, especially when gets close to them in a relationship. He just kind of it's
Hmm.
the yapping comes at him, and they because he's objectifying women in that way. It kind of all seems to fit. He's not really listening to them. He's just kind of seeing it at face value and all of that kind of stuff. Um,
It would fit into your line of thinking that the way women are portrayed, and that's why he sees them as less than or like.
that's their function in that society anyway. Certainly in like if he's reading Nintendo Power, like he's reading magazines, Life, TV, all of that kind of stuff. There is an objectification of the female form and all of
Mhm.
those things. That's what they use to sell them, and that's what he sees. Maybe if he's just living his life and he doesn't really have solid female relationships at all, that's the only females that he sees
Mhm.
are in that form, and they don't speak to him necessarily all the time. He projects conversations into them, but at some stage he just can't think of any more words, and so they just bark or yap at him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, all things possible.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think of the last 15, 20 minutes of pulling it all together? The attempt to pull it all together, should I say?
I wondered if the cult or the society, like the subculture that they have, that they're living in these concrete basements and they're gonna ascend. Did that all happen?
I mean, they're not almost certainly didn't happen, but is it isn't it an attempt to show another level of ridiculousness? To kind of reaffirm in your head, like all of this is nonsense. At what point? Like I think the most interesting point in the movie is when you look, is it all nonsense or is there a break point? Is there a point where you go, oh, from this point on, it's all fantasy, or split the thing into reality versus fantasy? That bit of reality meant that he jumped and went here. I think those are the interesting points. By the time he gets to the end and meets the girl, etc., again, and goes into the cult, it's just like, oh. this real like to me at that time I was like, this has gone on too long now. You know,
Yeah.
the point was made. I don't really see what new other than he meets the girl and they have that the conversation and it ends the way it does. You kind of go, okay, there's some resolution to this in some way, but like meeting the dude basically from Big Lebowski, in some ways as being the leader of the cult. Like I was like, right, okay, maybe it sort of fits with his demeanor and his dress and all of that kind of stuff. Like almost like he lives almost like a drug fueled life without us ever even seeing him really take and ingest himself or take part in the drug taking. But it is that kind of almost like a trip.
The one part I was kind of on the fence about was the lady with the birds. What she
Oh
because
yes,
he
yes,
ends up
yes.
knocking on her door and the bird is saying something. I still don't know what the bird is saying, but I'm not sure what the point of that was.
Who knows?
I don't know.
There was I have to admit there was a lot of it. I just went. I am now trying to project. You know, I'm trying to make some sort of fit, so this makes some sort of coherent narrative, and I'm just not sure that was intended.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that that was part of the thing. I think a bit like Mulholland Drive. Here is a scene within its own right. You can kind of make sense of and kind of go, "Oh, this means something." But as soon as you jump to the next scene, kind of go, oh, "This is something entirely new," or "This is another idea or another thought." And you know, it could be the devolution of just his entire life, his breakdown
Hmm.
of his reason and thought. You know, if he has no car, he has no house, he's no place to go to at that point. He's really looking for a home, possibly, and meet. You know, the fact that he ends up in a cult maybe makes complete sense. Then maybe he goes to an underground bunker, you know, and that's full of homeless people, and he becomes one of them. Then, but then in his own right, he's still, and it's still in his own eyes, he still has this idea that he's high part of society. You know, he's at these parties that he's, you know, there's a reason for him being down here. He's actually found reason, even though in reality he hasn't got anything else.
Was he the homeless king?
But it was only when you said it earlier on I kind of went, is that himself in another lot of years? You know, sees where he ends up. You know, that's just him meeting himself for the first time or trying to explain, and the homeless king is him and saying, "Oh yeah, this is me now," you know, and this is what we do. This is part of who we are. When you said, you know, him being homeless the whole time, that's where I kind of thought, well, maybe.
Because he does mention when he's walking with the heir or the billionaire's daughter, he mentions something
Hmm.
like the homeless are always in the way. He's complaining about them that they stink and they're always in the way. And she says something to the effect of, "Well, just give them $1 and they'll go away."
To go away, yeah.
So I wondered if that's he's like there's some self hatred there or like some shame or something.
Well, it could be again if he is homeless in reality. Um, it's part of critique on how society treats homeless. You know, the fact that there's somehow $1 is what will get rid of them or get rid of the annoyance of them. You know, make somebody go away, give them $1. Like the dollar's not actually doing anything for their state or their the situation.
Yeah.
But they are sort of everywhere, and you know, anybody travels around a big city now, it's quite shocking. You know,
Yeah.
when you see the levels of homelessness that there is about, and nobody seems to want to do anything with it or do anything other than say, you know, I'll buy you a sandwich
Yeah.
or I'll, you know, that kind of thing. So, hmm.
I have no idea. I don't
I
know.
real I honestly, I think Elliot compared it to Southland Tales, which was the Richard Kelly film, um, and it's kind of weird and wonderful take on a genre film. In this case, neo noir.
Hmm.
And these films always seem to split people. Some people love it for its twistedness and the kind of weirdness that it has that you can pick apart and discuss, or you kind of go, no, films need to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you mention it, it is very Lynchian that there are no I don't know if there are any concrete answers that we can point to and for sure know.
But like I think I've talked about this before. You can have some theories, and actually everything you've presented me, Steve, I can go, yeah. I mean that completely works. But you can own that. You can go away and think, I think it's definitely about this, or at least some of these elements could be tied up by doing this, and I can do my own thing and say it's this thing, and we can both be right and both take ownership of the film. Take ownership of what we thought of the film, and that sort of makes us buy into it and kind of sing its praises a little bit because we can come away with completely disparate views. Maybe there's even people that like Andrew Garfield's character in this. That there's some sort of hero worship comes from it. And
Brian, I think he's homeless for sure and schizophrenic.
that's what we needed, a third opinion. Third different opinion, Brandon. That's really helped me. Could be schizophrenic indeed, because he does swing. His ideas and his thoughts seem to swing wildly from one thing to the other.
And it seems like because he doesn't seem very concerned about paying rent.
It's never a concern.
No.
He's never worried about paying rent. In fact, when it comes to it, he just kind of goes, take the apartment and I'm going to wreck it. I don't need it anymore.
Mm.
I quite like that scene, actually, where they turn up. And they're like, what? I quite like that scene. But it's the first time, again, if it happened, that he is seen, really by somebody else, or he seems to have an effect in the world. And I think, again, that's part of why I think that he does it. If I do this, people will notice that I've been there and that I left my mark, because there's nothing else. No car, no job, no relationship.
And they're looking for messages everywhere, and like in music is a schizophrenic trait.
I might have to check myself in.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Although I have to say, I'm not a lyrics person at all. My wife says, well, you know what that song's about? And I'm like, no idea. Not the foggiest notion. I know how it makes me feel, and that's about all I've got there.
Let's see what else was there. There was a ton. Yeah, I don't know. There was the coyote. I'm not sure what that represented. He's following the coyote.
The coyote hunts. It's a hunting dog. So again, he's on the hunt, sort of with the coyote, possibly, but loose tangential, kind of trying to make sense of stuff.
And they do spend a lot of time blindfolding him the first time he goes to the bunker, but then they just let him go. They don't seem too concerned about keeping their secret after that. They just kind of let him wander around. All those little inconsistencies were, I don't know.
It is one of those. I kind of wish I had looked at more reviews and more theories on it now, because I think actually collecting and putting up all the different things that people would have thought about it now is really where it's interesting. Other than the very obvious, there's a couple of things that are definitely true about it, and that's the fact that he went to make a neo-noir film. Like that was a very conscious choice, because those bits are familiar enough that you can recognize. But other than that, he has little pastiches of looking for the missing girl. Again, a very classic noir trait. Somebody down in their luck. Again, classic noir trait. But actually, everything else outside of that is very much. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Zombieland. I don't know why. There's something about it with Zombieland, with the travel around the house, and maybe it's the scene where he goes to visit the musician. It's almost like the one where they go to meet Bill Murray's character. It's kind of reminiscent of some of that, and then I don't know. Zombieland's the one that pounced into my head when I was watching. I was like, some parts of this are reminiscent of that, but Zombieland's a much more straightforward, normal film.
Yeah.
But it does exhibit that road movie trait of him traveling from place to place. He's not static in any place.
I thought a lot about Fight Club watching this one, because it's this generation that's like this rudderless, directionless generation that looks for
Hmm.
mysteries and everything, and they're obsessed with things like video games or
Yeah.
and we're part of that. We're probably part of that generation too. But yeah, that kind of we don't have those big events anymore that that become our identity. We don't have that, so
I,
that's kind of
I,
what I thought of.
I like that. Fight Club's a movie that have fallen off as I've gotten older, but when at the time, it really resonated with me because I could see exactly that happening. As a
Yep.
younger generation kind of project. I love the idea in Fight Club that the character of Tyler Durden sort of represented what was cool, but actually, as the thing going along, you realize that maybe he's not quite so cool, and like again, that young male perception of this is who I aspire to be, but actually the archetype, if I follow it through, I'll not like, all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And there's definitely a vibe of that here. And again, as Robert, or as I nearly said Robert Paulson there, as Andrew, as Andrew Garfield's sort of trying to find some sort of reason or answers in himself about who he could be and who he should be, and maybe he is just the homeless man at the end, or the homeless
Mm.
king, should I say? And maybe he's happy enough with that. The homeless king seemed to be quite happy. He
Yeah.
sort of had made his peace with it. But I like the Fight Club comparison for that reason, because that rudderless kind of nothing has any meaning and very nihilistic view of it.
Mhm.
Home doesn't matter, possessions don't matter. All that matters is living the experience or finding that one thing that you want, which in Andrew Garfield's case is this girl that he knew for about 2 hours that he did drugs with.
I wonder if that even happened sometimes because this seems to happen very quickly because it went
Mm.
from I see you looking at me with binoculars to do you want to come in and have a drink to do you want to get high, and that's good. Yeah, unless, but then again, maybe because the other group of friends that he meets later on, the actors and their escorts, they were all roommates. So maybe that other group of friends were also escorts. Maybe that was part of it.
The whole initial meeting with the girl seems very like he was just sitting watching her and then inventing it in his head, because very much he calls over, seen you doing this. Oh, did you really? Oh, and do you want to come in? Oh, really? Me? It
Yeah.
seems like one of those practice conversations in your head. Where you can, well, what if I went over there and she said, "Oh, I seen you looking at me," and you're like, "I did. Actually, I was caught," and she's fine with it. She's cool with it. And then
Yeah.
she says, rather than being actually what would happen, which is just completely horrified or otherwise,
Yeah. I don't
quite
know.
possible. Like I
Yeah.
say, anything is possible. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of strange things. Was there anything that stood out to you that that kind of you and kind of struck a nerve with you or?
um, the individual pieces, I'm not like to say the things that really struck a nerve were very much how it was made, the kind of nods that it has to noir films, the kind of stuff that I thought very I could identify with, while all the other nonsense was coming along. I did sort of hate watch some parts of it
Hmm.
before it kind of got me back. And later on, I was like, all right, okay, I know what this is. Rather than trying to make sense of it, I've got to stop making sense of it while I'm watching it. I've just kind of got to experience the bits. I can't look to see, who's killing the dogs, who these people are, how they relate to each other. I've just kind of got to experience it for what it is, and
Yeah.
then when I'm speaking to Steve, I can I can try and unpick it a little bit.
Yeah. There was a lot of, yeah, just like unexplained things. Now that we're talking about it, I wonder if anything from the point of from the very beginning, him spawning the lady across with the
Mm.
birds, from that point to the point where he meets the neighbor and she invites him in to get high with him.
The two
If
of them are
any of that
dressed very
happened,
similar. The,
yeah.
the girl with the birds and the girl, they're both wearing white, as far as I remember.
Mhm.
One has the top on, one doesn't. One wears the hat. There's that motif for the hat as well, that he almost follows the hat around because it's the only bit that he
Mm.
recognizes of her.
And that's what's burned in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Brownie didn't like this one. I kept wishing it would end soon.
I had that feeling for parts of it as well, Brandy, for sure. And I
Yeah.
did not like the ending at all. I just didn't like how he tried to wrap that up with the cult thing at the end. It felt a bit cheap to kind of do it like that, rather than him either end up accidentally killing himself or something like that. To kind of say, oh, this was about a descent into somebody's just losing everything and trying to find meaning in life. Maybe they liked the fact that it was going to be ambiguous, but it felt a bit tropey. The end. I don't know.
Yeah.
From that, but yeah,
A little too I think a little too predictable in a way, because it's you almost like expected it to go like a cult underground society kind of way.
and she was not missing the fact that she wasn't really anywhere, if it
Mhm.
makes sense. That she just left that night and left the place completely empty. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking, or what I'm hoping for is some sort of concrete direction from it to
Yeah.
say, actually, it could have been this thing, or even some choices. Um, because my overriding feeling is like nothing really had happened, and if nothing really that happened, did any of it matter? Does watching it matter?
Because at the end, they do tell him at the end, you solve the mystery, but you solved nothing. Like,
Probably not. Yeah,
you've accomplished nothing because it's not
and
what
it
you expected it to be.
and it sort of validates the Nintendo Power One, the back of the cereal box, all of that. What is obviously tripe. If
Yeah.
that's what you're trying to say, it sort of validates that by giving it meaning, if you know what I mean. And you're like, oh, okay,
That's why I don't think it actually happened. I don't think any of this stuff
yeah.
happened.
It could only exist in somebody's imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what's your theory? Your did any of it happen? Is the homeless king? What do you think?
I like the homeless king one that he basically made a future version of himself.
Mhm.
I do like that one. He's a bit because we get shorter as we get older as well. Like that could definitely work. I like that version of it because again, it gives it some meaning. His life seemed to be going, from the highs of the nice apartment, nice car, to descent, and he seemed rudderless to stop it.
Mhm.
He had no even desire to stop it. He had no fight. He never made an attempt to pay rent. He never made an attempt to earn money. Really, there was nothing like that was happening, and it seems obvious that that might be his final end point.
Mhm.
And then, if that's true, then all the other stuff is just didn't happen, but is his fantasy that he's living in to get that's his existence, if you know what I mean, to kind of give himself meaning that, oh, actually, we're part of a group. It's like we all float down here.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's the version of the film that I would like it to be. But it'd be interesting to watch it again. It'd be interesting to watch a film with a very distinct viewpoint to say, right, I'm going to watch it with this as the possible outcome and see if it makes sense. I'd like to watch it with this as the possible outcome, see if it makes sense. Kind of do a comparison between the three of them.
That'd be like 8 hours though.
I was going to say that there's your problem of 139 minutes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's the more like like I said, the more I have to kind of decompress. I think there's some neat things they did.
Yeah, there are for sure.
Yeah. But I think if you want like a straightforward, this is what the movie's about, you're not gonna be happy with it.
No. I might see what other people think about it. I might really try and pick Elliot's brain and see what it is that he thinks is happening, or whether he just likes the fact that it is about nothing because it is very Lynchian, and some people just love
Yeah.
that more than anything else.
I don't mind it. I think it's good when you can pull it off, but it's not easy to pull off.
Yeah, I think Lynch doesn't always pull it off in my view either, but when he does pull it off, it's the illusion that Lynch's films sort of actually make sense at some point to you. And I'm not sure this one ever does. But then I've only watched this one once. I've watched Mulholland Drive, I don't know, many times. I've watched Lost Highway once. Lost Highway makes a bit of sense to me. No Way Through, Eraserhead makes sense to me. All of those films sort of make sense to me in one watch more than this did. But maybe I just need to watch it again. And luckily I have a disc.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to
Yeah.
it for sure. Yeah.
And sometimes you just need a really weird movie.
Yeah.
You need something that you're in the mood for, like, I just want to watch something different. I've just been watching what feels like the same movie over and over again. You know, the dark, moody horror movie, or the dark drama, or the family that's in turmoil, or that kind of stuff. And you're like, let give me something else. And that would definitely
Yeah.
fit the bill.
Oh yeah, definitely does. So who would you recommend this movie to?
My wife would hate it. I do think this is a movie for film lovers. I
Hmm.
think this is people that really have seen a lot of movies, people that have seen enough of this style of movie, in terms of seen enough noirs that you'll get those notes and you get those beats. Seen a lot of people have seen enough Lynch movies and maybe
Hmm.
like some of the ideas about that. I think the general stick this in your local cinema, people are going to hate it
Oh yeah. Yeah.
with a burning passion. People will walk out of this movie.
Maybe about 2 hours in, I can see people
Yeah.
throwing in the towel. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's you have to be either in the right mindset or like these types of movies to really
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see any comments, etc., that come in the video. People saying, haven't watched it yet. I did watch it and I have questions.
Yeah, I think part of it is just the fun of putting all those things together, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it was an interesting one to discuss. Like I say, I was kind of looking forward to it, but not looking forward to the chat, because I was like, I don't know if I really like this movie, like some of the other movies that we've discussed. That I can come away saying, like, I really like this movie, or I like this movie to a point. This one, I'm just totally undecided on. I like The Craft, but I'm not sure in the rest of it. But
Yeah, it is
who's
a
to say?
different. Is
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Can you think of anything else?
I think I'm all out for the moment. I just have to
Yeah.
go and watch lots of other people's takes on it now, and read a lot of
Yeah.
other reviews.
I did read one review last night. I think it was on Collider that I didn't think was accurate. I didn't, but who knows? But it didn't jive with what I took away. But again, that's what's kind of fun about it.
Yeah. Have you seen It Follows? His other film?
Yeah.
Did you like It Follows?
Hmm.
Much more universally liked. I haven't seen it now, to be fair, but it is it is one that a lot of people just say, no, It Follows is great.
There are problems with it. I can see where people dislike, but it's one of those you can talk about for a long time. And
Right.
yeah, so I enjoyed it. There's lots of cool things in it.
I like cool things.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
So Chris, anyone wanted to find you, where's the best place to find you?
So you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, on the Patreon forums with yourself, Steve, or on Twitter at 7 o'clock Shadow, for as long as it stays up.
We'll see. It's going to change. Yeah. Well, cool, everybody. Well, thank you, Chris, for discussing this with me. It's
another one down.
Yeah, another one down. One, but 12 more to go. 13?
See, easy. Yeah. You're making this look really, really straightforward.
Easy. Almost halfway there.
We've just got you've got like a stream every day or something coming up now for a while, don't you?
Yeah, that last week is going to be busy. But it's okay. It's
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Well, cool. Thanks, everybody, and we will see everyone very soon, or tomorrow if you're watching this as we're recording. So see everyone soon.
Take care.